Oh, we're live. Hello. All right. Hello, or you're joining on Facebook. Say hello. I'm happy to be here again this week to talk about your questions about the Setting Boundaries That Work workshop and how that went for you. And I'll do a little recap and let's talk about why you should listen to me. So for one is that you are a parent who is really committed to shifting dynamics in your family. There's things going on and you prefer to be gentle, but it's challenging because you weren't raised that way. And that's what I'm here to support with my 30 years of experience and education and practice with families and children, all kinds of backgrounds, all kind of diagnosis and awareness around different abilities. And let's see, I'm just getting messages, so I just have to move it. Anyways, okay. Yeah, so I just have such a wide range of perspective. I've also was raised with the old-fashioned kind of techniques that are still pretty prevalent today, and this kind of push for being more strict and like setting really boundaries that aren't mutually respectful. So those are some of the things that you should be interested in if you're here. And the way that this group and the Facebook, and if you're on YouTube, there'll be a link below to join into the Facebook where we have some different activities happening if you want to join there. And that will, yeah, oh my goodness. For some reason getting text is distracting, and last time I had figured out how to turn that off, and now I forgot to do it. Okay, so... all right, so that's why you would be here. If you have stuff going on in your family and you want to shift it and you want to shift generational patterns. And that's what I was going to say about how this group got started was through the KonMari method, which is super important and actually really relevant to this conversation today, because what we talked about last week was setting boundaries. Some of the elements, the really important one is really understanding yourself and knowing what your boundaries are, like knowing what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what you want for your family, what your values are for your family. And if that has felt like not that clear to you, then when you simplify and you allow yourself to choose to keep the things in your life that spark joy, it's a pathway to being able to know yourself and know what boundaries you want for your family, which then allows you to be more firm and more loving and kind, and also have some strong boundaries that feel good. And you feel confident in those kind of decision making because of this practice you've had in simplifying, when you've done it intentionally and had support potentially. So from last week, that's the recap of that connection. And so I walked through some questions. If you haven't caught that, then you can DM me for the link to it. Or if you're in YouTube, it's the first one. It's just the workshop, number 1, that you can check that out. And so going through that, understanding yourself and knowing what's important to you and what isn't, and so you can let go where you need to, can help you set the tone that you want in your family and for you to be taking that leadership, and then being able to communicate it with mutual respect. That was the next step in figuring out, well, what's blocking you from either knowing what your values are and being able to be consistent with that, or oh my goodness, what's the next one? I just got distracted because I'm trying this new camera angle, and for some reason I'm very distractible, if you haven't noticed. So anyway, we can do this. This will happen. All right, so I walked you through the questions and the blocks that potentially are happening, and you can fill in the blanks for yourself. And we have some more today. And then how to be in alignment and hold boundaries and be consistent. Some questions around that so that you can reflect on what your practice is and where you need improvement to be more consistent and feel good, and that the boundaries are mutual respect. You feel respected, your children or family feel respected, and people are cooperating, and it feels like, for the most part, good. I did mention that sometimes setting boundaries is tricky, and I was hoping that there would be people that had specific situations to request support with, but I didn't really get that. I have a couple of questions that I'll answer, so thank you for those. But I think it's helpful to dive into what, like, a specific challenge that's probably common. And one in my family is around technology and screen time. And so this is like a complicated one, and I think also complicated in that's really connecting in with what you really want, what's important, what your values are if you're a family, and then also how you're modeling what you're doing. So for me, I'm on the screen a lot because my work is related to social media and that type of thing. And so I think a lot of parents are in this situation where they're like, oh, I want my kid to have less media, but then have to be an example. And so it's like figuring out the boundaries for you around that, and then also trusting your own intuition, your own instincts, your own thing that's right for your family, not what society says or the experts or your parents or anything, just knowing what's right for your family. And so recently, my daughter has asked for help around having less screen time. And it's interesting because in those moments, like I posted about today, when we're like having these quiet, connected moments, is when she'll open up and say like, oh, I feel like I'm doing too much screen time, because we have pretty wide allowance of using the screen, because like I said, I often am on the screen. And so my solution there is like putting in more fun activities rather than less. But the main point of this around boundaries is seeing what are they asking for? And sometimes, so she'll ask for these boundaries, but then when she wants to use the screen and I say, no, we're like, let's figure out something else to do, she'll push back against it. And so it seems like she's saying like, no, I do want it, but I also know that she doesn't. So people are complicated, right? And finding that way where it's like standing in your value and what you know is right, so that you can have that strength to help your people have that strength in our own what's that word? Where you're can rely on yourself and you won't overdo it. Anyways, just that ability to make your own decisions and follow through and stop yourself eating or stop yourself doing screens when it's been enough, and following through with that is a skill that oftentimes adults don't have. And so helping a kid with that, there's a learning around it. So I feel like that is a little bit rambling, but it's like knowing what's really good for your kids and what they really want, like deeply want, rather than like when you say no and they're like, yes, I do want sugar, or yes, I do want the screen, or yes, I want this thing, but they also, part of them wants to be more healthy and they want support with that. So if you keep that in mind as you're going through, then you can hold your ground more solidly in that. But yeah, so if you have issue around screen time or other things, then maybe we can dive into that in the DMs, or I can go live again next week on the same topic with more specific related to your family. For today, what I have, and I'm really grateful for Libby. Let's see, I wanted to read exactly what you had written because I love this question. Learning to set boundaries for children without breaking their spirit. So yes, that is key for sure. And I did cover that a little in my first session, going into that mutual respect, setting boundaries that feel respectful. Maybe not necessarily feeling good, but definitely respect, like both parties feel respected in the limit setting. And then I asked her if she had any specific question or insight, because I know she's a mama with older kids. And let me find her reply here. So I've had several strong-willed children, and I think trying to find the balance between keeping the authority and still keeping things in line and being functional in society while letting them be fully them. Right, LOL. It's a lot to figure out what's right with society pressure, and when you have a strong-willed kid who isn't easily just listening to what you say when you say that's enough. And this is so, so important, to have that balance and that sense of that you're the authority in the family, and that the kids are respected, and you're on the team together. There's a team. And do you know what comes to mind to me? And I think most people can relate to this. When you were in a job or are in a job with a superior, and the way that they treat you really can be similar to how it feels to have a parent, like high quality, connected, like a boss that's really helping you be productive. There's certain characteristics or certain ways that you feel around them, versus a boss who's just like, oh, you did this wrong and that. And I think most of us have had bosses where we've seen the ways that work and help us be more motivated, help us be more part of the team and putting in our contributions and feel open to share and bring in our wisdom and knowledge and expertise, and really like things are flowing and feeling good, versus when it's someone who's like more like, oh, this is wrong, do it this way, and micromanaging or being rude or just not coming with that mutual respect and that you're on the same team, even though there is just a natural authority kind of in the birth placement or in the workplace, where if you're the parent, you're the authority, just natural setting, which sometimes, parents struggle with that. But if you can step into that power in yourself to be that kind of boss, kind of authority who is respectful and gets cooperation, that's what I'm talking about. And that's where it's like knowing yourself, knowing what feels good, practicing, having support, knowing what's right for your child and child development. And so, like I mentioned last time, there's the phases, the different ages, there's different needs, and then there's different diagnosis or different way that people's brains work, and there's individual personality. And being someone who's worked 30 years with different kids and families and everything, I have this like wide range of knowledge of what you can expect at certain ages. And that is really helpful to feel more solid of like, okay, this is what my kid needs. This is what I need. How do we make it work in that mutual respect? And so that everyone's spirit is supported and alive, and there's openness and sharing in the family. And so you're shifting this dynamic around just showing up in a really powerful, respectful way that's having results that you want in your family. So that it's fun, that you're connected, that you're feeling supported and held, that they're feeling supported and held, that it's really a peaceful, loving, harmonious, delightful vibes. And if those are missing for you, then you can look to see, oh, where am I getting frustrated? Where am I yelling? Or where could my authority be improved? And then the dynamic in our family could be really shifted from there, from knowledge and support and all those things. So yes, it is possible to have the right boundaries for your family and have that authority. Oh, and Courtney, hi. I just saw you popped in. Say hi if you're here, and if you're watching the replay, you can hashtag replay so I know that you were here. And I think when I'm live, I often can't see comments, so I'll have to come back in for that. So I'm going to shift into the next concern that I had from a mama, and she has, I don't know if you mind me saying your name. You messaged me privately, so I'm not going to say your name. And the concern was around anxiety. And that was the whole question. It was one word. And so we're going to go with that. And I do know, like, she has a new baby and a 3-year-old who's strong-willed, and then a teenager. So it's this wide range of ages and needs and level of intensity of mothering, needing. So when you have anxiety in there, and for me, what I'm kind of extrapolating from that, and especially around this conversation with boundaries and wanting our kids to listen, that was the other part of boundaries that I wanted to put in, is that partly what you're saying, it's like you want boundaries, but you want your kids to listen. And so how can that be more, bring in awareness of what works, what doesn't work, and have more practices that work than don't, and that deteriorate the dynamic in the family. So if you're feeling like stress, overwhelm, anxious around parenting, the top thing that comes to mind is that you're not trusting yourself. And so that comes back to what I was saying in the beginning about when you know what you want, so you know your values, you know what's right for you, you know your spark joy of your clothing. And I just redid my closet, and it is amazing. It just feels so good to really choose what's right for you, and it's beautiful and clean and smells good, and that like actually really invigorates all of my life. That's just a side note, but it's really connecting back to that self-trust. And as a mom, there's so many ideas and experts and other people and their strong opinions. And so maybe like your parents or your mother-in-law or father-in-law or other people's ideas of what's right, that can really be putting pressure or confusion and really disconnecting you from your own knowing of what's right for your family. And that's what I really love to help moms reconnect with their own knowing, especially around parenting, because really, if you're able to settle and trust yourself and know that you have the answers inside of you and you can trust yourself, and when you need help, like I was saying, if you're like, okay, I have these kids, these different ages with these different behaviors, and so we don't always know everything, and help is helpful, but part of it is when you're more grounded in your own authority and your own decision making, you can be a better parent. You can hold better, stronger boundaries because you're more self-assured. And so that's what I'm taking from that sense of feeling anxiety. One aspect of that is not really trusting yourself or feeling like calm, grounded energy around parenting and knowing how to do the schedule, how to do the routine, how to get everyone's needs met, and be able to provide from an overflowing cup rather than not enough. So I was going to do a little exercise around this because I like tapping. So actually, I think I'm going to walk you through the whole calm process, and let's see, how does this going to work? I don't know, Courtney, if you're there, if you could, I don't know if you've commented or not, because I can't necessarily see it, but if you have a specific challenge with boundaries, you could type it in. If I don't see it now, I'll come back to it, but I'm going to think of, okay, I mentioned the screen time one before, so I'm going to walk us through the calm process when you're trying to set a boundary around screen time. And so what happens, and if the boundary is stressful or not working, or it just feels like something needs to shift so that it's more smooth in your family, here's a strategy. Here's a practice that you can use. So I call it the calm framework, and we start with curiosity and getting an understanding of what's happening for you in that moment. Like, why are you getting angry, frustrated? Why isn't it working? Kind of asking some questions around what's really going on here. And you start with yourself, like, whoa, I'm really mad right now. Like, okay, what is going on for me? And how can I understand myself in this situation? And so you walk through that, and it might be, how was I treated around boundaries, or specifically screens, which is an interesting one because that wasn't really my growing up. We didn't have screens. And so that's a new, like, oh, it's new. We don't actually know. And there's a lot of like, oh, it's going to damage brains, or disconnection, or a lot of judgment around it. And so you have to sort through and find like, what's your belief system? What's your values around it? And so kind of going deeper in that, if there's anything for you around that, let me know. That comes up if you're trying to set limits around screens and you're maybe confused or upset or maybe anxious about what's going to happen for your kids, like with their brain. Are they going to be okay? Are you disconnected? And, you know, these kind of feelings that get you out of being grounded, get you out of being able to just calmly follow through with what you know is right. The next part of that curiosity piece would be, what's happening for my kid right now? Like, why are they pushing back? Why are they in resistance? Why are they fighting back? Why is it not going smoothly on their part? And so you take into consideration, what's their age? What are they used to? Like, is it clear? Is it the same boundary every day, or is it changing and inconsistent? And so then it makes sense, like, oh, yesterday I let them do this and today I'm changing my mind. And so then that, oh, Courtney, I do see a message from you. It says, it's so true. I want to be in charge of things and have a cohesive environment. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Okay. And so then going through their age, what's going on, and then this one actually could be for the adult too, but definitely for the kid. Like, are they hungry, tired, thirsty? Are their basic needs being met? And is that the actual problem? Or maybe did something happen earlier in the day, or something, like you're like a sleuth, a detective to figure out like, what's happening for my kid? Is this a normal reaction? How can I best support them? And like, what's the communication underneath their behavior right now that I can just like address that? Oh, and Courtney's saying she homeschools. Yes, so do I. So then it's, you're with each other a lot, which has the pros and cons on there. All right, so you do the curiosity and kind of really understand where your trigger's coming from, how were you treated in these situations, what your kid is trying to communicate, just going through that, and then bringing in alignment between your values and your actions, and connecting in with your three brains. So your mind, your heart, and your gut. And all of those places, like, we get information, and that's how we can tune in and trust ourselves. And the mind part is definitely a lot of those questions, like what's going on, and kind of deciphering it. What are my opinions? What are other people's? And that. And then if you kind of come down into your heart and think about, what is the heart message here? Which, if you're spiritual or religious, then, or if you're not, it could be life force. But having this like sense of what's your heart message around this right now with your kid, and wanting to stay connected while you have important boundaries for them. and that your family is cohesive and connected. And then, so yeah, you get into alignment around that, and probably in a coaching session, we're having more back and forth and like being able to really align your, the three brains around this. And then we get to L, and that would be the letting go. And so what needs to be let go of, and that you can be grounded in that wise woman, mother self, holding this boundary with calm and grace and ease and feeling confident. And if we're talking about this mama who has anxiety, and I think there's lots of different ways that we can let go. We can kind of pinpoint, well, if this is my goal for my family, and you have probably a long-term goal for them and a short-term goal. And so it's like the short-term goal would be like, stop using the device when you're not allowed to and go to bed, or, having the short-term immediate, like stop fighting, listen to me, like the thing for the immediate. But then there's also the future. So you want them to be successful in the future. You want them to have self-control. That was the word I was thinking of before, self-control. And like be successful, and, you have these lots of goals for them that are long-term. And so right now, we're thinking of the immediate, but we're also, when you're like parenting with intention, you're thinking of this longer term goal. You want them to stay connected with you. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. So that's a real strong boundary that Courtney's saying. She bought a lockbox to put the iPads and computers away. So that's like a visual boundary. That's like, has all the sides to it. That's a boundary that's really clear. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a tantrum or not resistance around when it's time to put them in the box. But that's a really helpful visual cue that, like, okay, they go in here at this time, and now we're going to do this other fun thing, or now it's time to get ready for bed. And that could be fun too, with stories and talking, massage. But, oh, she sneaks it. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it's like that they can figure out. She's a little bit older too. I can't remember. I just saw a picture of her. And you just had a baby. Congratulations. That's fun and makes all the layers of parenting. All right. So I was thinking of, oh my gosh, is she 9? Oh yeah. So she can do the codes and whatever. That's like, we lock our things with the code, and then my daughter will figure them out, or that kind of thing. So yeah. All right, so I was going to do the letting go process, and we do different things depending on the need in the coaching situation and your preferences. So you might like journaling, you might like shaking your body, moving, you might like, what are the things that we do? Oh, breath work. Just deciding, like, rewriting the story in the way that works for you. And then also tapping, it's like I mentioned. So tapping, EFT, and I'll walk you through a little one on that anxiety kind of feeling. And so if you're the mama who reached out to me about this, then hopefully this is helpful to you. And if you're new to tapping, we're gonna have a sip of water. You should be hydrated. And we're going to set up the statement. So we're going to set it up, and then we're going to tap through the points, and I'll show you, and I'll be talking through it the whole time. And if it's new to you, then you can watch and enjoy and get an idea of it. And there's lots of resources online about tapping, and it can be really helpful. One time I did this for my private group, and instantly I was like, you could see how much more relaxed I am. So you could start now and kind of rate your level of anxiety or stress around setting boundaries and anxiety. right now, like at the beginning of this conversation, I was feeling like I was messing up and feeling anxious. Now I'm on my more like, okay, I've got this. I'm an expert. I know what I'm talking about. And I have a clear plan of what we're going to go through. And this, I'm really open. So the way that I do tapping is more just the next best thing that comes to mind, and might be a little kind of tapping into what it feels like for me to be anxious, or what it might feel like for you if you have multiple kids and you're feeling, I think what she said, she feels like she's drowning and she feels anxiety. And so what we do is set up the thing on the side of your hand. You're tapping and you're saying, oh, even though I have all of this anxiety, I love and accept myself. And then if you're spiritual or religious, you can add in, even though I have all of this anxiety, I trust that God, universe, spirit loves and accepts me just the way that I am. And then we can start through the points, and you can do with one hand or two. And we start on the top of the eyebrow right here. And that's like, oh, all this anxiety and fear and overwhelm. All of these feelings are so heavy, and just not feeling like I'm doing good enough as a mother, and that I'm worried my kids are not going to be okay, and that my relationship with them is feeling off and not how I want it to be, and disconnected. And so you're thinking of all the things that, like, it's like your journal of all the things that feel heavy or unresolved or stressful, that don't feel good. And you're just like, really feeling into that, and like the heaviness and the overwhelm, and feeling maybe alone, like that's all on you to do this, and maybe your partner has different levels of supportive or not there, or just feeling alone in this journey of motherhood, which is a lot, and we have these high standards, and it's a lot to carry. And just need to breathe, needing to open up to this one. I don't know if you can see, like, your bottom of your brow line on your side, and back to the top of your head, and like, okay, opening to the possibilities that I can figure this out, that I can be supported, I can open to support, I can find support, and ultimately I can really trust myself. I can trust my kids, that they're on track. I can trust that I know the answers. And if I get quiet, and if I get grounded, answers will come to me that feel powerful and good, and I can feel connected. And even through the hard times, if my kids are resisting or angry or upset about a boundary, I can still hold it and trust myself through that discomfort that they're feeling or I'm feeling. And I'm open to that possibility of being supported. I'm open to the possibility that everything is okay, and I'm doing the best I can, and it's good. It's good enough. I'm enough. This is fun, actually. I love motherhood. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm finding some joy in this life, in this process, and those sweet faces of my babies. In those moments that are so life-giving, and the reason why I had children. And oh gosh, okay, I'm feeling really good. I hope you are too. And then at the end, you can just be like, I'm amazing. I'm an amazing mom. This is really fun, and I'm having the blast, and I am so good at this, and I'm so supported and loved. Da-da-da. Yay. And then you can sip your water. And then you can feel like a higher vibration, for me, is coming through. And if you practice that, you can do that on your own. You can follow that one that I just did. And you can kind of rate. I even feel better. I said I was feeling like good. I didn't give it a number, but I feel even better now that I did that. And so what you're doing is like you're tapping on those meridians where there's energy flowing in your body and clearing out some things. So really physically letting go through your body and your mind and your heart. And then the final calm, the M, is modeling and how you're going to show up for your family and be that leader that they need, that you need, in developing that trust for yourself and that inner knowing and that trusting your own judgment around different things and really having that clarity about what are your goals for the short term and the long term. And the way that I like to help families is through coaching, and we do joy map sessions where we figure out like, what do you want more of in your life? Like all that goodness, like how do we get that? Like what are the blocks to that, and how do we bring more joy into your life and weave that in the simplifying and the stepping up in your leadership and being like understanding what's happening for you, understanding what's happening for your children and what all your needs are and how do you meet them. And yeah, so definitely reach out if you have specific boundary questions that you're struggling with, or reach out if you're interested in having group or one-on-one support with me to really transform your family dynamic and transform like what that's feeling of anxiety and stress and not being good enough and worried if your kids are okay and if they're on the right track and like all of that, and turning that into like, yes, we're good. Like I got this, I'm good, I have the support I need, and it's amazing. Life can be filled with so much delight. So thanks for listening. Definitely pop your questions in the chat here, and I will see you next week with some more. If we have more specific around boundaries, we'll do that. If there's another topic, let me know what you're interested in having support around. Yay! Enjoy this beautiful day.